From setting a brand new salary record to making a fast and furious comeback, here's how Dwayne Johnson snubbed James Gunn with his latest huge payday. He's making $50 million upfront for his role in Amazon Studios' original movie, Red One, in which he stars alongside the likes of the great Chris Evans and the legendary J.K. Simmons. So we can assume that this movie is a big deal. Because why else would they bring together Captain America, The Rock, and a guy who's been in over 200 Hollywood films? Jake Kasdan and Chris Morgan have worked super hard to come up with a script that brings a festive vibe to the Christmas of 2023. And while we don't know much about the plot just yet, Johnson described the film as a cocktail of Jumanji, Miracle on 34th Street, Hobbs and Shaw, with a sprinkle of Harry Potter and the magic of the iconic Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. Amazon Studios genuinely believes that this buddy comedy is something special, so no wonder they're willing to pay their lead actor an amount that no actor has ever made for the shoot of a film before. In the past, Kasdan and Johnson have worked together for Jumanji, and we all know what a huge success that franchise was. The first film alone earned $962 million at the box office, and the second grossed over $800 million. Amazon clearly wants a taste of Sony's success, and that's why they're bringing Kasdan and Dwayne back together for their latest project. But what's interesting is the timing of this project, because now that the news of Johnson's comeback is out, James Gunn isn't too thrilled. This is the same guy who brutally snatched away Johnson's dream by choosing to discontinue his passion project, Black Adam, when he first became co-CEO of the DCEU in October 2022, alongside Peter Safran. The story goes that The Rock had been dreaming of playing the infamous character for 15 years, and even said that this was a role he was born for. Johnson truly believed that this movie could transform DCEU and change the structure of the power dynamics within the studio, so it was more than just a film for him. And his efforts paid off in 2022 when he finally got the role in Jaume Collet-Serra's version of the film. Except, some dreams are better off as dreams, because this film didn't turn out to be as great as Johnson wanted it to be. With a budget of $185 million, it only managed to earn $392 million in return, which is pretty low by Dwayne's standards. On top of this, fans and critics alike thought that Rock's little passion project was generic, predictable, and just not entertaining enough. But then again, it wouldn't be fair to say that the film was a complete failure. Some folks really loved Black Adam, and besides, it was the most profitable DC film in the last 5 years, so perhaps Johnson wasn't the problem, and the studio was just going through a rough patch, with the MCU as its main competitor. The below-average response to Black Adams was a wake-up call for the DCEU, and they decided to hand over the reins to the new studio bosses, who came in guns firing and made a decade-long plan to reinvent the DCEU. Unfortunately for Dwayne, this plan didn't include continuing his Black Adam storyline, even though the actor had already made huge plans for the sequels. What sucked even more was that once Black Adam was canceled for the foreseeable future, Johnson's career had a setback. Which doesn't sound like the biggest deal for someone with a net worth of $800 million, but it wasn't the brief hiatus that hurt The Rock's feelings. It was the treatment he got from the studio. This guy had invested insane amounts of money, time, and energy to make Black Adam happen, so the decision to just snub him must have stung. But once the film was shelved, he really didn't have any upcoming projects for a while, because he'd cleared his schedule for the DCEU and his future in that universe. But James and Peter made it clear that they didn't want him, and chose to abandon him at the lowest point of his career. Things got so heated that there were rumors of an impending lawsuit against Warner Brothers and the DCEU from Johnson's end. But experts were predicting that the studio will always win in the end, so the lawsuit didn't happen, and all reports of it were denied. It's not like Gunn didn't know he'd upset a lot of people with his plan. He even admitted that the reaction was awful, and there was a lot of uproar. But he was doing what was best for the DC universe. Initially, Dwayne was pretty civil about the whole thing. He made the announcement of his DC exit on social media and wished Gunn the best of luck. To his credit, even James responded cordially, but things took a turn for the worse when James removed Cavill as Superman and replaced him with his younger knockoff version, David Corenswet. Fans went absolutely ballistic when this happened, but Johnson was even more furious. He'd fought pretty hard with the studio bosses to get Cavill back in the iconic role and believed that no one could do it better than Henry. Dwayne argued that if they wanted to make Black Adam the most unstoppable force in the DC universe, they had to bring back the most unstoppable force of all time in any universe. which for him was Henry Cavill's version of Superman. But James obviously had other plans and chose to discontinue that storyline altogether to work on something new instead. This was the final nail in the coffin for our former WWE superstar, besides the fact that Gunn also tried to replace him with Chris Pratt by giving the Marvel actor the role of Crypto the Superdog, which is already being voiced over by Dwayne. This is obviously a huge blow to The Rock's ego, because he's worth 10 times as much as Pratt. So it doesn't make sense for Gunn to want to replace him, unless the reasons are personal, of course. Whatever the case may be, it's highly unlikely that James's attempts to sideline Dwayne can cause serious damage, because Johnson's one of the biggest names in the industry. This is the same guy whose movies have earned over $10.5 billion worldwide, even though he didn't even have a film background to begin with. The Rock was born into a wrestler family, and during his early career, he honored his family's legacy by becoming one of the most lethal wrestlers of the WWF. He managed to make a name for himself in that industry, before finally getting his breakthrough Hollywood role in 2021, when he was cast in The Mummy Returns. After that, he took a break from wrestling to pursue his dream of being an actor, and managed to bag a lot of pretty big roles in great films like Moana, Jumanji, G.I. Joe, Fast and Furious, and of course, The Tooth Fairy. And he's actually won several awards for some of these films too, multiple times. This is a guy who's insanely popular, especially amongst younger people, so it shouldn't come off as a surprise to anyone, especially James Gunn, that Dwayne Johnson is making a career comeback. Take that, DCEU! But no, I'm not just talking about his $50 million jackpot for Red One. Johnson actually has some pretty great stuff lined up. He's all set to make his Disney comeback by playing his epic character in the live-action adaptation of Moana. The last time he did this was in 2016, when he voiced Maui's character, so fans are obviously thrilled to see his return. On top of this, he also has a Netflix project alongside Ryan Reynolds and Wonder Woman herself, Gal Gadot. So it looks like he's all set. But this isn't even all of it. Dwayne's getting a solo Fast and Furious movie. That's right. Brace yourselves, because Johnson's Luke Hobbs is about to make a comeback in the Fast and Furious franchise, in a way that's never been seen before. Johnson made the announcement in an Insta post, where he confirmed that he's getting his very own project. So, from the looks of it, he's resolved all his issues with Vin Diesel, and they're both ready to become like brothers again, and focus on the bigger picture. This is great news for fans, because we really missed him in Fast 9, and it was pretty upsetting to hear that the reason for his absence was a tiff with his co-star Vin, especially since Hobbs's character really helped catapult the franchise into fame. He's been so popular that he had his own spin-off, Hobbs and Shaw, in 2019. But now that everything's good in the hood again, Hobbs is about to make an even greater comeback. Had Johnson stayed in the DCEU, he would have missed out on all this. And so, from making a Fast and Furious comeback to setting a brand new salary record, that's how Dwayne Johnson snubbed James Gunn with his latest huge payday.